Welcome back to Observing the Sabbath. I'm your host, Nathanael Molnár, and this is it. We're kicking off our look at Black Sabbath's fourth studio album, aptly titled Volume 4. Now, originally they were going to call it Snowblind after the song, of course, Snowblind on the B-side, but the studio was not going to let them call their album such an obvious reference to cocaine, so they called it Volume 4 instead, which I would have been perfectly fine if they called it Snowblind. I would have been perfectly fine if they called it Supernaut or any of the other songs on the album. I do think Volume 4 is pretty, it's not the most original title, but it fits for what this is. So I think it's a cool title. I think it's a cool album cover. I just kind of enjoy in general. And I've alluded to this throughout, but Volume 4 is my favorite of the Black Sabbath albums, at least right now. One thing I've noticed about myself is my opinion on what's the best song, what's the best album, what's the best this, what's the best that is always changing. It's always fluid. For a long time, I held Sabotage to be my favorite album, and then it wasn't until I got Volume 4 on vinyl and listened to it all the way through as a record that I really came to realize, no, this is my favorite album as a whole. And Sabotage is probably maybe 2 or something like that. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head. I'd have to sit down and think about it a little bit more. But Volume 4 is just fantastic. I absolutely adore this album, and I'm very excited to get into it and talk about all of these different songs. So we're going to kick things off today with Wheels of Confusion. Now, I'm going to throw this over to you guys because I really want to know from you. On Spotify, whenever I listen to this, and I can't remember if it's actually on the record or not, whether it's labeled this way, but when you bring up this song on Spotify, it's Wheels of Confusion / The Straightener. And while I kind of know from all of the, on Black Sabbath, the original album, or Master of Reality, why it has sort of the multiple names, because it's the different parts that they're putting together, I've never quite understood why Wheels of Confusion is also / The Straightener. So if you guys have any sort of answers or know of why that's also part of the name, or if it's just like they were just kind of fucking around, they're like, oh, let's also call it The Straightener. I don't know. If you guys have any answers to that, please let me know in the comment section. But we're going to dive into this song, and this is one of, if not my favorite Black Sabbath song, period. For a while, it was my favorite Black Sabbath songs. I don't know if it still is. I've been saying multiple times that once I finish going through all the albums, I'm going to sit down and actually do a official ranking, song by song, all the songs that Black Sabbath has done. So I don't know what it will be when I actually do that in, 20 years from now, when I actually get through all the albums. But as of now-ish, I mean, if it's not my number one, it's certainly up there. Wheels of Confusion is just phenomenal. So I don't want to say any more. Let's just get right into it. This is Wheels of Confusion. And now, immediately we just start right into it. No fade in, we're just right into it. There's so many great riffs in this song. Tony really just packs this song just filled with great riffs. And I love this riff. It's slow, it's methodical. You get a lot of this throughout the album. Like Snowblind has a lot of those sort of long form riffs. In Paranoid, the album, you have a lot of songs that are very fast paced. Paranoid itself is a very fast-paced song, and you have very fast riffs, whereas Volume 4 has a lot more of these kind of flowing riffs, where it just kind of takes its time. I love the lyrics in this song. It's very interesting and existential. then Tony brings it back. It's a great riff. There's a lot of like very consistent themes throughout this album in terms of what they're, singing about and speaking about. There's a lot of like looking at life in its entirety and sort of just going through and looking at sort of the facades that people have about life and existence and kind of stripping it away to its bare essence of we're on this earth and we're gonna live, and this earth is just spinning and it'll keep spinning once you're dead. You get into some of that with Under the Sun, kind of talking about people ruling the nation, when you just laugh at their frustration. You go a lot into sort of the mind, and you have Cornucopia, talks about, the heaviness of someone's mind. There's a lot of really interesting themes on this album. And this is where the song picks up. I always talk about what would be the mosh moment in certain songs. Like, what was the moment where the mosh pit would just start going, and it's that part for this song. And I love that little just sort of part on Tony's end. Now this is a really interesting part, because it does slow down, and you just have like these really interesting sounds, like that part, the little, like, there's just like really interesting things going on. There's a lot, like I mentioned at the top, that this song is just packed. They just have so many interesting things going on. And I think what you can tell is, and I've talked about this numerous times as we went through the first 3 albums, the first 2 albums were them essentially recording their live sets. These were the sets that they had on stage that they did, and they recorded essentially that. Then, when you got to Master of Reality, they were actually in the studio, recording, fine-tuning, really creating an album as opposed to just recording their live set. Now, once you get to Volume 4, and really you can hear it in this song so much, you have them sort of marrying the two, in that you have sort of the visceral feel of them playing their live show, but you can also see how they're crafting these albums and creating it, as opposed to just recording it. And it feels so much more intricate, and it feels more deliberate, and you can tell what they're exactly going for, and just how smart they are in terms of how they link the songs together, how they float between riffs, and how they really incorporate so many different elements into the song themselves. I love this whole part. And there's never been a winner. Try your hardest, you'll still be the loser. It's a great part. Now we're kind of getting to the point where what I would imagine, if we're actually going to distinguish these as Wheels of Confusion and the Straightener, where we're kind of, the Wheels of Confusion end and the Straightener begins, which is right about here. And I love this whole next part. It's so good, because the song feels like it's over, and then it comes in strong. And you just kind of get this like little jam session. And it's such a great way to open the album. If you really think about Wheels of Confusion as the opening song, you have this sort of, slower riff, and then you have these great lyrics and these interesting things, and then you just kind of transition into this sort of long-form jam session. Like, we're looking at the next 2 or so minutes is just sort of just them just jamming and playing around. I love the drums. Tony's just so great. See, something I love about Tony is that he finds very unique ways to do guitar solos, because if you look at a lot of songs, you kind of have, there's not Sabbath songs, but just songs in general. There's a very sort of structure to it where you have the chorus, you have the verse, you have this verse, and then you have the chorus, and then you have the bridge, and then you have the guitar solo, and they really find very interesting ways to kind of get away from formula and just kind of do their own thing. So when you listen to the song, you wouldn't necessarily think, hey, this is the guitar solo, but that's really what it is. It's the guitar solo. It's not even, I don't even know if I can call it a guitar solo. It's just letting Tony do his thing and just play around and jam. You can definitely feel at this point how comfortable they are with each other. I mean, that's apparent from the outset, but they've really, at this point now, it's 1972, they formed as Earth in 1968, so they've been together for 4 years. They put out, now this is their 4th album as Black Sabbath. You can tell they're very in tune with each other. And something like this little jam session, I'm not sure, now I don't know the history of this part. I don't know if this is something where they just kind of were in the studio and they were just jamming around and they're like, oh, let's put that in. Or if this was something that was kind of rehearsed and planned. I don't know if they even remember because they were on so much drugs at the time. I don't know if they remember themselves how it came about. But, so that's the end of the song. Wheels of Confusion is just phenomenal. Probably one of, if not the strongest album opener of all their albums. It's just, it's great. It infuses, in one song, it infuses so much of what Black Sabbath is. The slower riffs, the more meticulous elements, and then you just got the jam sessions with Tony just going all over the place on the guitar. You have great drums, great bass. Ozzy's got some great vocals in there. And it's everything that really Black Sabbath is, all their different elements wrapped up into one song. And they just do such a phenomenal job. You would think by the time that they're going into their 4th album, they definitely have a level of popularity now. They definitely have an audience. They're definitely touring the world and they're doing all these great things now. You would think that they would kind of play into the convention a little bit. They would play into the popularity. But instead, what they're doing is they're still just making stuff that goes against the grain, that goes against the formula. I mean, at this point, like, is it really the best idea to have the opening of the album be this, like, 6-minute song that has a 2-minute instrumental jam session? And that's not really something that's formulaic. That's just them doing their thing. And you can tell when you listen to their music, they are, before you get into like technical ecstasy and stuff, before that, they don't care what people think. They don't care what people expect. And they don't care what people are looking for them to do. They're just going to do what they want to do. And that's just one of the best parts about them as a band, because their music holds up because they don't try to play into what people wanted them to be. They were what they were, and the people who appreciate it will always appreciate it, and the people who don't get it are missing out. Wheels of Confusion is just one of the best embodiments of Black Sabbath. I mean, I'm a purist in that if someone were to ask me, like, where should I start as a Black Sabbath fan? Where should I start listening? I'm going to say the beginning. Start with Black Sabbath, buy Black Sabbath on the album Black Sabbath, and make your way through. That will always be my answer. But if I were to point to, maybe not the definitive one, but one of the songs that I would say most encompasses what Black Sabbath is, Wheels of Confusion would be one of them. Absolutely. Like, for everything that I mentioned, it's top-notch Tony, top-notch Geezer, top-notch Ozzy, top-notch Bill. It's all the different elements that make them unique wrapped up into one song, and it's just such a killer opening. It's such a fantastic opening to the album. And I just think Wheels of Confusion / The Straightener is a fantastic song. So that's all my thoughts on the song. I want to know, what are your thoughts on Wheels of Confusion? Do you agree with everything I'm saying, or do you disagree? Do you have some differing thoughts? Is it maybe not one of your favorites? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. We already did Wheels of Confusion, and now we are continuing on through with Tomorrow's Dream. So without any further ado, let's just get right into it. This is Tomorrow's Dream. And now. Great drums, just excellent opening. I love the distortion on Tony's guitar. I kind of talked about in Master of Reality, I talked about there were a couple of songs that just felt like, I don't want to say just because it sounds like it's minimizing the songs, but there are transitionary songs where it feels like they're taking you from one part of the album to the other. And I'd say for Volume 4, this one and Cornucopia kind of have that feeling to them. This is also one of those songs that kind of has a more minimal amount of riffs and parts to them. With something like Wheels of Confusion, there's so many different elements, so many different, even just tiny, tiny little riffs and moments that it just kind of jumps all around over. With something like Tomorrow's Dream, that kind of has just a few parts that it jumps back and forth to. I'd say something like St. Vitus Dance, also on this album, is similar to that. Cornucopia is a little bit like that as well, where it just kind of has a few riffs, a few parts that it jumps between. And it's meant to be a shorter song. It's meant to be sort of that kind of transitionary song between one part of the album to the next, as opposed to being like the standout. You know, there aren't too many people who look at Volume 4 and say the standout song of Volume 4 is Tomorrow's Dream. And likewise, you don't have too many people say the standout song of Master of Reality is After Forever or Lord of This World. You know, it's meant to take you through the album. There's also a lot of similarities in just like the tone of the guitar and everything with Tomorrow's Dream and Cornucopia. Sometimes I kind of, briefly, sometimes I get them a little bit mixed up in my head. I like that nice little, it's not really a solo, it's just kind of like a nice little interlude in the middle of the song. Ozzy's voice sounds great here. You can hear a lot of the emotion and the pain. Well, I think Ozzy's voice from album 1 through 6, every album just gets better and better and better. And I think it kind of peaks at Sabotage is when his voice is the best. And then Technical and Ecstasy and Never Say Die, it kind of dips down. See, that's the end of the song. It's a very short song. Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, his voice kind of dips down in terms of quality and range. It peaks at Sabotage, but Volume 4 is just, you could tell, he's just getting better and better at what he does. There are a couple love-related songs on this album. You have this one where, you know, the singer is going to meet this person, run away together. St. Vitus' Dance is about a person who broke Ozzy's heart, or, you know, whoever the narrator person is. It's Ozzy singing it, it's Geezer who wrote it, so it's sort of nebulous as to whose perspective this is really coming from. And I guess you could say also Changes is, it's not necessarily a love song as much as it is a heartbreak song. But you do have a few of those sprinkled throughout this album. And ironically, I've mentioned before that I'm just not a fan of love songs, just straight love songs. And what I mentioned this during the Black Sabbath album, because I talked about that album has two of them. It has Warning, which is a cover, and it has NIB. But the great thing about NIB is that it feels like, or on the surface seems like a love song, but it's really about a person being seduced by Lucifer. And so it has this sort of twist on it that makes it not really like a conventional love song. Volume 4 has a couple just more conventional love songs, but what makes it unconventional is the tone of it, Ozzy's voice, the riffs that Tony comes up with, just the sheer force and power of the songs. And so there's a lot of interesting things going on that kind of overtake its more conventional love song undertones and makes it more of an undertone rather than just something flat on the surface. You know, there's a distinct difference between something like Tomorrow's Dream or St. Vitus's Dance and, I don't know, a Mariah Carey, Demi Lovato love song. You know, there's distinct differences between them. Even if the subject matter at its very root is very similar. And so that's something that I think they do very well in Volume 4, is really kind of going beyond convention. And even if some of the subject matter, even some of the things are somewhat conventional, they kind of twist and distort it in a way to make it rather unique to this album. So Tomorrow's Dream, I think, it's a really good song. You know, it's got good momentum, it's got good force, it doesn't let up, it kind of just drives all the way through to the very end. And it's a short song, it's about 3 minutes, which is short for Sabbath. There's a lot of great things in there, and I think there's a lot of interesting parts, great drumming. I think probably the strongest element of the song is Bill's drumming. It's very forceful and intentful. So, I don't know if intentful is a word. It has a lot of intent to it. There we go. So anyways, those are my thoughts on Tomorrow's Dream. I want to know, what are your thoughts? Do you like the song? Do you agree with me and my thoughts on it's kind of like the short but sweet, the transitionary song? Or would you say it's a song that, no, when I look at Volume 4, Tomorrow's Dream is one of the absolute standout songs of the album? I want to know. Leave me all of your thoughts in the comment section below. We've done Wheels of Confusion, we've done Tomorrow's Dream, and now we are doing Changes, which I always say, every Sabbath album has the slow song. For Master of Reality, it was Solitude. For Paranoid, it was Planet Caravan. And for Volume 4, it's Changes. And when I talked about Solitude on Master of Reality, one of the things I did, I talked a little bit about Changes, and I commented on the fact that for Solitude, for this ballad that Solitude was, Ozzy changes his voice so that he doesn't have sort of his trademark sound to him, but rather he has more of a ballad tone to him. It's a very distinct, different voice that he does. And one of the things I had said in that video was, I wonder if Changes on Volume 4 would have a little bit more power and strength to it had he used a voice similar to that as opposed to his trademark Ozzy voice. So I think that's something to keep in mind and consider, and I'll talk more about it as we listen to the song. But Changes is a very interesting song, and there's a lot going on, so let's just dive right into it. This is Changes. And now, I love the piano. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's Bill Ward who did the piano for this. If I'm mistaken on that, please correct me, but I believe that's who did the piano. But I love the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. It's beautiful. I kind of go back and forth on Ozzy's vocals for this. Because as I was just talking about, like, what if he used his Solitude voice for this song? It might have had a little bit more power. But then I also listen to the song and I hear Ozzy's voice, and you hear the anguish and the pain and the struggle and the emotion in his voice. Would that necessarily have carried through had he used his Solitude voice as opposed to his more traditional Ozzy voice? I don't know. I really kind of like, because the song is obviously about, you know, the point of view of the person singing the song has lost somebody that they love, their significant other, who left them, and they're just feeling all this regret and they wish they could change. And it's not just change their past and what had happened, but that they themselves are now changing as a person. And I really like that sort of approach to the song, because it's really showing about how this is a defining moment for this person. And going forward, they will be fundamentally changed as a person. And tackling, obviously the song is called Changes, the chorus of the song is I'm going through changes. I think approaching the song in that way about the change that this brings to a person, I think that's a really powerful thing. And I think that is more powerful than just a song about being dumped. You know, we have plenty of those. But that's sort of, as I was kind of talking about with Tomorrow's Dream, taking something that's conventional and adding elements that make it unconventional and unique. That's something that this song has. It's not just a conventional song about getting dumped, but it's bringing this element of sort of that this person is now changing as a person. And going forward, they are looking at life through new lenses and wishing that they could go back and change these years. And I think that sort of gives a more universal nature to the song, that this idea of going through changes, it's not just about this one isolated story of a person getting dumped, but it can apply to a plethora of different things that would cause us as people to go through changes. And I think that's a really powerful element of this song. I love all the instrumentation. I love the piano. This little, I can't tell if this is like a keyboard. It's some sort of like synth, I think. I'm not the greatest when it comes to discerning musical instruments. So if someone knows all the different elements going on in the song, please let me know in the comment section. But it all blends so well. And once again, it shows Black Sabbath is willing to go places that they haven't gone before and do things. They're willing to create a full-on ballad, and they don't feel the need to, in the middle of this song, have Tony break out his great guitar riff, because they know the last song had a great guitar riff. They know the next song's gonna have a great guitar riff, so why not let this one be this? I know this is a very powerful and meaningful song to Ozzy himself and his daughter, Kelly, with a lot that happened with Sharon Osbourne, Kelly's mom, and Ozzy's wife. And I know this song has a lot of meaning to them, and I think kind of hearing them talk about the song and what that means to them has kind of shaped my opinion on what the song means to me. So that is the end of Changes. It's a beautiful song. I think if I had to choose between Changes and Solitude, I'd kind of lean more towards Solitude. But Changes is a great song, very well crafted. I love the piano. Can you still call it a riff if it's a piano? I don't know, but that do 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 do, like that, I think that's just beautiful, and it fits the song so well. The lyrics are great. Again, I kind of go back and forth of, it's sort of like, it's a question that'll never have an answer. Would the song have had more power if he had used his Solitude voice as opposed to his traditional Ozzy voice, or would the emotion and the anguish and the pain not have come through? We'll never know. But it's a very nice song. It's a very nice break in the album before you go into FX, which then ultimately leads into Supernaut, which is like the most high-paced, fast energy song of the whole album. And so I think Changes is a very nice song, and it's good to have. And after you have sort of all the different elements going on in Wheels of Confusion, with the transitionary song of After Forever with the heavy drums and the distortion, to then kind of have that sort of quiet ballad before you go into FX, which is just a bunch of noises that leads into Supernaut, which is the most like kick-ass yeah song of the whole album. I think Changes is a nice little break right in the middle of the A side of the record. So that's all my thoughts on Changes. I want to know from you guys, what do you think? Do you agree with me and my thoughts on Changes? Or is it a song that doesn't quite work for you guys? I want to know. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm your host, Nathanael Molnár. I'm joined once again by Johnny Gifford. Johnny, thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, Nathaniel. Thank you for having me.
It's always great to have you on board. So this is our first video together for Volume 4. So I've already done videos for Wheels of Confusion. I did it for Tomorrow's Dream. I did it for Changes. And now we are continuing on through the album with FX. One of the most interesting instrumentals that Black Sabbath has ever done. And I wanted to do a standalone video because in the past I have wrapped in some of the instrumentals in with some of the other songs. I wanted to do a standalone video for this because I think there's a lot to unpack here, and I think there's a lot of specific insight that you'll be able to give into this song, being a guitar player yourself. And I can very loosely attribute that term to myself. Very, very, very loosely. But it's a very interesting piece, but we'll get into it in just a second. So let's kick things off with, let's listen to FX. You ready?
Let's do it. Yeah.
And now. So as we're listening, Johnny, do you want to just kind of point out what you're hearing?
Yeah, I'm basically just hearing someone takes a guitar, they lay it down on a table, and then they just drop stuff on it, and they add a little echo effect to it. It's like they're just kind of tapping something on it right now. But then later on, they kind of start dropping stuff on it. Just like, I know the song started with like Tony Iommi's cross he was wearing around his neck. He like accidentally hit the guitar, and they were like, oh, let's just like make a track with that. Yeah. But then they just, from what I know, they just started like dropping other stuff on it at that point. And they added that really quick delay to it too. So it gives it this kind of like mystical, like, it keeps moving, you know, it keeps moving. But it's like at the same time, it's kind of suspenseful and kind of like, it sets kind of like a weird tone. It definitely is a good build up to Supernaut. The Quiet Before the Storm, you know.
Definitely.
It's kind of eerie, I guess is the word I was looking for.
It is very eerie, and I love the build up. Like it starts very slow, and then it's kind of just adding more and more layers on top of each other. Do you know the other part of the story behind this song?
I don't think so.
So, yes, part of it is that Tony Iommi's, his cross fell on it, created the initial sound, and they went from there. The other part of it is that when they were making this song, they were incredibly drunk, and that's the end of the song. They were incredibly drunk, completely coked out of their minds, and without them really knowing exactly how it happened, they all ended up completely naked while recording that song. And we're just fucking around with the guitar, completely naked, completely drunk and coked out of their minds. And that's how you get FX.
Wow. What a beautiful story.
But I think that is just one of... And there's a very similar kind of instrumental piece when you get the Sabotage called Don't Start Too Late, where they kind of just fuck around with the guitar, make some interesting noises, and you get just a nice little piece in the middle of the album, or at the very beginning. But I really like something like this on the album because it to me, it just kind of shows that while they're making a lot of songs, like especially if you look at Paranoid and Master of Reality, they are creating these songs that are taking the world by storm. They're becoming iconic pieces of music that people are still talking about and recognizing 50 years later that are like a staple of music and they in themselves, without them really knowing, created an entire genre of music. For them to then just have a piece of time, about like a minute and a half, where they're just fucking around with a guitar, making sort of nonsensical noises while naked and completely inebriated. It just shows like that there's a fun element for them while making this. They're just having fun. They're just kind of messing around. They're not taking it too seriously, and they're just putting out something that's just really kind of fun and innovative.
And I love the energy of just them like totally being cool with just throwing this on the album as like a little interlude track. Like a lot of musicians get really caught up in the professionalism aspect of it, and like every track has to sound perfect and it has to like flow perfectly, but they're just like, I mean, given they're taking a lot of drugs, they're just having fun with it. Like, good for them, really. But they just don't care. They're just like, yeah, we'll throw this on the album. Why the hell not? And honestly, it makes for a really interesting sound, especially if you go into it just like you listen to this album, you don't really know what it's gonna sound like going into it. It's just another element that helps set the tone for who Black Sabbath is in general, and especially leading up to like the next couple of songs that they're gonna like just smash right into, which the center of their albums are always like the most explosive parts, I think. Yeah. From what I remember. Because we have Snowblind and Supernaut in the middle of this album, and so this is really setting the stage for like what's to come next. It's like your little introduction.
Definitely. And I think also coming off of Changes, where you kind of have like a more emotional song and a slower song. I always say that each album has the slow song. Changes is definitely that slow song on Volume 4. Yep. So you're coming off of Changes, where it's much more slower pace. You have the piano. And so that's definitely a change of pace for what Sabbath is. And then you go from that into this. It's kind of like you're going from you have like a whole array of emotions that you're kind of experiencing all within a span of a few different songs. You go from like the solemn, the sad song Changes into FX, which is a little bit more eccentric and kind of strange, and then you go right into Supernaut, which is just jam-packed and full of energy.
Yep.
So I think FX, I've read online some people don't really care for FX, which I can understand to an extent. Like if you're listening to Volume 4, say on Spotify, where you have individual songs, I can understand FX is just kind of like one that's there and it doesn't really produce much. But I would say if you're listening to Volume 4 as a record and you just sit it down on your record player and listen to it all the way through, it has a nice flow to it, and FX is just like an interesting little side tangent on the album that just kind of goes off into this little bit, and then it just picks right up and goes right into Supernaut. And I do think it has it works very well as a very nice flow transition right into Supernaut.
Exactly, and I'm sure they probably could care less about that at the time of them making it. It was more like just to throw in there as a joke, like I was saying earlier. But the fact that we can look at this album and the way that they put that in there, the spot that they put that in there, and just the overall flow that it gives the album, and we're still talking about this like however many years later, means that they definitely did something right.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that kind of speaks to the immortality of music and art, really, where something that can just be in the moment, you're completely drunk, completely high, and you're just fucking around with a guitar.
Yeah, I think I cut out for a naked. Moment.
Yeah. Yes. Completely drunk, completely high, completely naked, just fucking around with a guitar, and that will be immortalized and forever. That as long as there are people listening to music, and as long as people choose to listen to Black Sabbath, they're gonna hear that. And I think that's something about art that I've always been drawn to, that something can be set in stone and just exist. And it really doesn't ultimately matter what are the circumstances or the context around something being set into stone. All that matters is what's there. And so it's nice to kind of know like the story behind FX, but at the end of the day, all that really exists is FX.
Yep, and to the people who are complaining about it and saying it doesn't really do much for them, it's a minute and a half of your time. Yeah. Like, come on. You can't really complain that much, honestly.
I was going to say Volume 4 was a 10 out of 10, but that 1 minute and a half in the middle of the album, So,
just ruined the whole thing.
Yeah. So, do you have any other thoughts on FX?
No.
All right, so that's going to do it. So those are our thoughts on FX. Once again, I'm Nathanael Molnár. I want to thank Johnny Gifford for being here, for helping me out with this. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nathaniel.
So we're going to continue on through, and we will be talking about Supernaut. So you'll want to come back and check that out. And I want to know from you, what are your thoughts on FX? Do you agree with us that it's interesting and you like its place in the album? Or are you like some of those other people who we've disputed and said is wrong? Do you agree with them and say that it's not that great and that it kind of takes up space on the album? I want to know. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. So you joined us last while we talked about FX, one of the more interesting instrumentals for that Black Sabbath has really ever done. And now we're going straight into Supernaut, which of course has always been the opener for the Observing the Sabbath videos. I've always thought it's funny because I've heard that song so many times, not just because every time that I edit Observing the Sabbath, I hear that song, but just because it's such a damn good song. I listen to it a lot. Supernaut is such a timeless song and probably just one of the top tier Sabbath songs.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. Where does this song rank in like your top Black Sabbath songs? I know it's up there.
In my top 5.
Rough, yeah. Like
I don't know exactly where, but definitely.
It's a hard question. Yeah,
it is. So I'm not gonna say any more. So let's just dive right into it. So this is Supernaut. You ready?
Yep.
All right, and now.
Ooh, the opening hi-hat, just like. It's such a good transition from FX too. It's like that constant kind of like tones, and then whoosh, there we go.
Yeah, it just takes you.
The ride.
Now, I think it's interesting that the next song on this album is the song about cocaine, because that song, Snowblind, is like the sort of quieter, like it slows down a little bit, but this is the song that's like all the energy. So I always kind of interpret it like this is like the high-paced, energetic part of. I've never been on cocaine, but I would imagine, from everything I know, you have the high-paced, frenetic part, and then you kind of die down from there. And I think they kind of show that with the two songs back to back.
Yeah, they really do. I view this song as like the inspiring, like self-confidence, like boost, and like everything is so great from the drugs, but also I think the message of the song is more just like, oh, be the best person you can be, like, you don't need anyone, you got yourself, like,
yeah,
kind of in an inspiring way. And then the next song is just, you're really just in that, like, drugged out haze, even though cocaine is, like, traditionally viewed as, like, a speed drug. There's just so much intense drug usage on their part in general throughout that song and this album and their career that it's just kind of the vibe that they want to give you, even though it's specifically about cocaine.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with all that. And I think you're talking about this theme of not relying on anyone but yourself. Yeah. That is a very constant theme throughout this whole album. You see it on Wheels of Confusion, you see it here, you definitely see it in Under the Sun. And that's part of why Volume 4 is, I think, my favorite Black Sabbath album. I really love the themes and messages of this album, in addition to just all the great riffs and all the great songs and everything like that. You also get that in Cornucopia a little bit as well. The guitars and the riffs in this song is just top notch.
Yeah, that riff is so memorable, and also I don't think they're doing it right now, but at the beginning, now they're doing it. There's a really beautiful harmony to the riff that Tony is playing, like sort of in the background. You can hear it in the right ear a bit. It's following the same riff, but it's just like very pleasing to the ears to hear that perfect harmony. And now we have this part of the song, which goes just drums and then all this weird auxiliary percussion and acoustic guitar. I think that's really cool too. And I hear like bands do that nowadays as like a kind of like a silly, we don't take ourselves seriously joke kind of thing. And these are the guys that really started it. They pioneered that kind of like, don't take yourself seriously. And we heard that with FX too. It's a joke, but the music still sounds kind of very serious.
Yeah. And I really like this placement within the song. because I feel like where this happens is typically where Tony would get his big solo. And you don't really need it with Supernaut, because I feel like the entire song is his solo. You know,
yeah, pretty much.
It's such a guitar-driven and guitar-heavy song that the break from it, what differentiates it, would be to have this sort of percussion-y drum part that's like so tonally very different from the rest of it, but it fits so much in line.
I feel like in so many ways they're saying fuck you to the record companies and in this song, just because, like, you know, throughout the lyrics it's quite literal, like I don't need you, I don't need this, I don't need to pretend I got all I want, like, don't try to reach me. And then just like that part we were talking about specifically too, it's like the record company's like, all right, we need the big solos, we need the hard-hitting parts, like, to sell some records, and they're just like, nah, we're just gonna throw some wacky stuff in here.
Definitely.
And then our slow zoom out.
And I think
or
just
fade out.
one of my beautiful fade out. Just the final verses of this song is just some of my absolute favorite. Got no religion, don't need no friends, got all I want, I don't need to pretend, so don't try to reach me, because I'll tear up your mind, I've seen the future and I left it behind. It's cool. And I love there's a bit of a fantasy element to this song too, that I really like. I also just love, like, the opening part. Like, I want to reach up, I want to touch the sky, I want to touch the sun, but I don't need to fly. I'm going to climb up over every mountain on the moon and find the dish that ran away with the spoon. It's all like, it's like very much about just moving forward. It's like a bam right out the gate, and just like, I want to touch the sky, I want to reach out, I want to do all these things, and then kind of this journey of finding I don't really need other people, all I really need is myself. It's really well done.
And once again, they really do a phenomenal job at matching the lyrical content with the pace and the tone of the music as well. This song is so uplifting in so many ways, just like, it's semi-fast tempo, it's non-stop riffs, it's like constantly moving bass line, and just the, like, explosive vocals from Ozzy. And then that's pretty much, they're matching what the song's about pretty dang well there, I think.
Yeah. This song is so well done. Like, this is, like, every time I listen to this song, I'm just kind of blown away by it. Because it has so much power, it has so much energy, and so much force. Like, it's unlike, really, I would say maybe the closest equivalent would probably be Paranoid. Because Paranoid kind of has that similar, like, powerful riff. But I would say Supernaut, like, I mean, I love Paranoid, but Supernaut, I think, is even better. Like, it just, like, it really just goes for it. It's like a bolt of lightning.
Yeah.
So, I think Supernaut, I think, is my favorite. Actually, no, I'm not going to say Supernaut's my favorite on the album. I have another song that's my favorite on the album. Wheels of Confusion, I'd say, is my favorite on the album. But Supernaut's a very close second. Supernaut's just phenomenal. I think it's fantastic guitars, fantastic riffs, fantastic sound and tone overall, great lyrics, just great composition and structure as a song. Overall, I just think Supernaut's just brilliant.
Yeah, and it's smack dab in the middle of the album too. Is this the last song of side A or first song of side B?
Last of side A, and then Snowblind is the first of side B, which I think is a very great placement for those.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to structure the album overall. You're ending strong and you're starting. See, what you want to do with, like, albums, I think, is, and even like sides of albums, because when you're listening to it on vinyl, you're kind of getting separate experiences from either side. You kind of want to start by introducing, like, a viewer or listener to your world, and then end, like, as bit large as you can. I think that's a really good way to do it, and that's what they're doing here. Is they're ending side A with just this really explosive thing. They're starting side B. They're like, all right, let's stop. Let's start over for a minute. Let's ease you back into it. And they start with this really, like, slow, heavy song coming next.
Yeah, and definitely, like, I think the opening of Snowblind I think is so strong that that's the perfect way to open up side B.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just that structure, as you were talking about, it works really well.
Yeah,
So,
they're consistently hitting it out of the park in terms of album flow, and that's something I really listen for in an album because I'm very much like an album oriented guy. I like to listen mostly to just albums in order instead of just like random songs, and I like can recognize that Black Sabbath were pioneers of really being able to make an album flow as well as they do.
definitely. And I think also part of it is we've talked about this as we've gone through the albums, that Black Sabbath and Paranoid were recorded in like 1 or 2 days, pretty much just doing their live sets. And once you got to Master of Reality, that was really them working for weeks in the studio to fine tune and really put together an album. And I think with Volume 4, they carry over that mindset of Master of Reality where they're kind of tweaking and working on putting together structurally an album. But I think they also kind of take what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of the spontaneity of the first two albums of being able to do it live and work on it live that they bring to Volume 4.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I think, like, with everything you were saying about creating and structuring an album and that stuff that you look for, I think once you get to Volume 4, you've seen that they've been working and building on that because over the last couple of years that they've really been doing these albums, you can tell that they've matured and grown in terms of how they approach music from when you start out with Black Sabbath to now that we're at this point with Volume 4.
And they've really honed it like so well from their first album to here. Like you hear the just the progress that they've made in terms of their song structure, their album structure, and just how each song is produced, whether that's, you know, the actual sonically the way it's produced or just the level of instruments and the level of layers that they're adding in each. Like they keep honing their skills more and more, and this album is the peak of that thus far.
Absolutely. And it's crazy to me. So Volume 4 was 1972. Mm-hmm. This is only 2 years after they put out their first album. In the span of 2 years, they've put out 4 albums.
That's so impressive.
Yeah. And I think Sabbath Bloody Sabbath was 73. So they did 5 albums in 3 years. It's
wow.
Yeah. So it's and now they skipped. Now there were 2 years that they skipped. So they skipped 74, and they skipped 76 because Sabotage was 75, and then Technical Ecstasy was 70, or maybe Technical Ecstasy might have been 76. I'm getting it a little jumbled. But there were only 2 years in the span from 1970 to 1978. They put out 8 albums, and 2 of those years they did not put out an album. So that really shows just how on it they were. And I think it's incredible just from our point of view now, looking back, that we can see so much growth and disparity from Black Sabbath to Volume 4 when these were only done in the span of 2 years. I think the fact that it shows so much growth shows how much they've grown in the process of making these.
Yeah, that really is an incredible amount of growth for just 2 short years. It really is.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to do it for Supernaut. I want to know, leave all of your thoughts on Supernaut. Do you agree with us that this is just one of the best Black Sabbath songs? Do you think it's one of the more overrated songs in that you think there are other songs that you would hold up more to be one of Black Sabbath's top rather than Supernaut? I want to know, leave all of your thoughts in the comment section below. So, you and I mean, we've done most of this album so far, but you and I specifically, we've done FX, we've done Supernaut, and now we're moving on to Snowblind. So before we get right into it, some interesting facts about this song in particular. So originally, Black Sabbath wanted to name the album Snowblind. They wanted to name it. That was the song that they wanted to name the album after. However, the studio did not want to name their song, name the album after such a clear drug reference, and so they ultimately went with Volume 4 But if you look at the inside of the Volume 4 album, in there it actually says, while they're listing off everyone who they thank, they say they'd like to thank the great Coca-Cola Company. Coke in all caps. Because, as many people know, for the making of Volume 4, while they were in studio, they would literally have giant speakers full of cocaine delivered to the studio. Wow. So they would have just giant speakers come in, and then they'd open it up and they'd pull out all the cocaine, and they'd do all the cocaine. And that
as one does.
And that is how Volume 4 was made, through speakerfuls of cocaine. And so that's how you get Snowblind, which is this is such a great song. I feel like I'm going to say that for every single song on this album. But it's such a great song. And I just want to get right into it. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, let's listen to Snowblind. As we were talking about with Supernaut, I mentioned that the opener of Snowblind is so great, that works so perfectly as the B-side of the album. And it's such a powerful opening.
It just hits you immediately, you know? Mm-hmm. I love that.
I love this riff.
Oh, just like the slow arpeggios. Like, you got like the rhythm, and then the arpeggios. It repeats a couple times. And now we're just to our just sit back and let's just cruise along.
Yep. And Ozzy's voice is so great on this song.
Yeah. He's got a good vocal melody there.
And in case you didn't know what the song was about, they let you know.
My brain.
Cocaine.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Just like really, really subtly right there. I think that's funny.
Yeah.
I like that line though. Icicles within my brain.
Yeah. Feeling happy in my pain. Icicles within my brain. Yeah. There's a lot of great lyrics on this song. Mm-hmm. Like very poetic. Like the song has a lot of like very poetry-esque lyrics, more so than many of their other songs.
Yeah, they're like. So obviously, like, the term for cocaine is snow, like snowblind, and then they take that snow and that cold feeling that maybe you get from, like, the stabs within your nose or your brain of, like, initially snorting cocaine or whatever. They take that, like, literally as cold, and they're drawing those parallels between cocaine, snow, the sensations, and just coldness.
Yeah.
So it's like this, if you weren't, like, aware that it was about cocaine, you might think it's about them being like really cold or something.
Oh, Ozzy's just caught in a blizzard. Come on,
freezing.
No,
yeah,
that comes years later though. With Blizzard of Oz. But
you're right.
I love this whole part. My eyes are blind, but I can see snowflakes glisten on the trees. And his voice is so great in this part.
Yeah, it's really like harmonic here. It's like you got him. Usually when he's just like screaming his lyrics, it's just like one single track, but he's got a few of them. They're harmonizing with each other. They're like kind of sitting a little more with the instrumentals. It's nice. And it's kind of describing, it follows the imagery that he's describing as well, you know? More of a scenic picture.
Yeah. It
and then
feels very much like
a classic Tony solo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does.
Yeah, and Tony's solos and riffs and everything. And the song changes pace so many times. And that's something I keep talking about with Sabbath, is like they'll have so many riffs in one song. And so you have that here, definitely, like you have like the main riff that we're listening to now, you'll have his solo, but then it completely changes things up, like halfway through the song goes in a completely different direction.
Yeah, they love doing that, and I love that they do that. For at least the first, for at least the majority of this song, though, they're kind of staying with the same themes, progressions, chords, and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But that is a very common thing that they do throughout a lot of their albums, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that arpeggiated riff again. I really like that.
And then here we go.
And here we go.
This is the mosh part. This is the part everyone starts going.
You hear the guitar play, like the solo guitar, and everyone's just like, "Oh shit, it's time to kill each other."
Yeah. I love this whole part. Don't you think I know what I'm doing? Don't tell me what I'm doing is wrong. You're the one who's really the loser. This is where I feel I belong.
Yeah, and like the angriness of the lyrics really translates to the angriness of the music for that verse.
And then we're right back to the main riff.
Yep.
And then there's this little part that comes in over this next part that I really like. It's like, is it a keyboard or something? Maybe it's like a pedal. It's that little like ringing.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what it is.
And then Tony comes in.
I could see it as being a guitar or a keyboard, honestly. Just very affected for sure.
Yeah. I know they didn't really like use keyboards prominently until after Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, because the song Sabracadabra, they used the keyboard with that, and then pretty much Sabotage, Technical Ecstasy, and Never Say Die, then they were prominently using and touring with a keyboardist. I'm blanking on their name, but that was just like became part of the sound. So I don't know if they were using a keyboard necessarily yet when they were doing the song, but it was something. But Tony...
Yeah, I think it is one, actually. But it's just, like you said, they're not really using it too prominently. It's just an accent here, really. Yeah. Because Tony's still soloing like crazy over it.
Yeah, and I love his solos in this. Like it's got the it sounds so good. It's so good.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So, and very, as we were kind of talking about when we were discussing Supernaut, very interesting compliments to each other. Like, you have Supernaut, which is just a very aggressive, over-the-top, like, punch-to-the-face kind of song. And then Snowblind starts off as a little bit more slower, more melodic, just kind of like easing you into things. And then it hits its high part, and then it kind of slows down again. And it has, I wouldn't say it's as aggressive as Supernaut, but it has its aggressive points.
It's definitely like, with that and in Supernaut, like the sort of comparison there, it's a song structure that like has worked for them a lot in the past and just works very well in general, I think. Sort of starting out with a thing and then building to a peak and then like going back on that a little. It helps emphasize that peak too, to say like this like peak of loudness, of rhythm, of melody, just like it only happens for a short period of time, and that makes it that much more special. It makes it stick out to the listener that much more as being like important, an important moment. And like that's when Ozzy's singing about like his anger, and the Snowblind at least he's singing about his anger of like why is everyone judging me for this? Don't tell me what to do. I'm like totally happy right now. Don't like rain on my parade, kind of in a very aggressive and angry way.
Yeah.
He really wants to get his point across, and just the fact that it's right there and only right there really is like a wake-up call, I guess, to anyone who's listening. It's like, if you're going to pay attention to anything in particular, you're going to pay attention to that moment.
Definitely. Completely agree. So I guess my next question to you, so we discussed Sweet Leaf, and we discussed now Snowblind. How would you both compare and contrast the two, and which would you say you ultimately prefer?
I mean, that's such a hard comparison to make, honestly. They're both so good.
Obviously, the connection being that the two are the two drug center songs on that they've done.
Yeah, I think, I mean, from a sonic point of view, I think this song is produced better. I think there's more, like, ultimately more going on in this song that makes it more of an interesting listen. In terms of lyrics, I guess not being an avid cocaine user, but being an appreciator of marijuana, I guess I kind of, I appreciate Sweet Leaf in that way, in that regard. Mm-hmm. And just the lyrics in that one are more like kind of carefree and more like come on, man, like I don't even know how to put it in words. You get basically what the song's saying. This song, on the other hand, is like, with that middle bridge part aside of the angry bridge aside, there's some really beautiful imagery in Snowblind, I think, and just the analogs that they're making to cold weather, to blizzards, and to icicles and things of that nature are really nice. And if you just look at those lyrics, like with the cocaine analogy aside, they're really beautiful lyrics, and they really evoke a lot of imagery that I think is just really well written. So this one's like the more well crafted and honed in version of their drug song, and I appreciate it for that regard. But I think Sweet Leaf is the more like raw, like, oh, let's just get stoned and like rock out kind of vibe. It's a lot more like laid back, I guess. This one's taking itself a little more seriously.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I agree with all that. I would say, for me personally, I think I may have said this when we did our Sweet Leaf video. I think Snowblind is the more elegant song in that I think the lyrics are definitely better. Like, I think it's better written and more well written in Snowblind than Sweet Leaf. I mean, I love the lyrics of Sweet Leaf and I love the feel of Sweet Leaf. Snowblind, I think, is just more well written. As I kind of made the comparison in this video, it feels like poetry.
Absolutely.
And everything you're saying with like sort of the analogy to ice and blizzards and will my ice age ever come, and like that whole sort of that line that they draw all the way through with snow, I think it's just so well done. I think in terms of like the main riffs, because obviously you got the main riff of Sweet Leaf and you got the main riff of Snowblind. I think the main riff of Sweet Leaf has more power. But I think the main riff of Snowblind kind of fits the song better. I don't know if that makes sense. But I feel like the overall craft and tone of Snowblind, I think, works better than Sweet Leaf. Although I love Sweet Leaf. I love the main riff. I love the solo in the middle. I love all the lyrics. It just feels to me like Snowblind, they may have sat down a little bit longer and crafted that a little bit more than they did Sweet Leaf.
Absolutely.
And part of that, I think, may be that they were originally planning on Snowblind being the name of the album, so that was going to be the song. That was going to be the main focus of the entire album. And probably their constant consumption and love of cocaine made them take it just a little bit more seriously. And they put a little bit more effort into it. But also just, you know, they've had more experience by the time that they get to Volume 4. They have Master of Reality behind them, so they understand a little bit more about putting together an album and structure and flow, and so it just works a little bit more for Snowblind. I love both songs. I love them both. I think I would have to slightly take Snowblind over Sweet Leaf, but that's just me. I absolutely love Sweet Leaf as well, though.
Yeah. I think I like them for different reasons, so it's kind of hard to pick one over the other. But I guess objectively speaking, I think this is just like a better song.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think in retrospect, I think it's interesting that out of all their songs, they really only have 2 drug songs. Since drugs were such a big part of their lives for the 8 years that they were together. I guess you could make the case Hand to Doom is about like heroin and drug use, but it's not in the same, I guess, quote pun intended vein as Sweet Leaf and Snowblind, because Sweet Leaf and Snowblind are all about like how much they love these drugs and just how great it is, and it's sort of like both are love songs to the drugs that they love, whereas Hand to Doom is more like a cautionary tale about the use of heroin. So I guess technically they have 3, but I think it's interesting that for how much drugs were a part of their lives, that there's only a few songs that are actually about that.
Yeah, do you think there was any like pressure from the record companies to like not make too many songs about that?
Maybe. I don't know. That's a good point. Maybe,
Yeah.
But I also feel like they also already did songs that were about that. And
True.
I'm sure there were other, I mean, I can't think of specifics off the top of my head, but I'm sure there were other artists around the same time also doing songs about drugs. So that may have been part of it, But also, I feel like as Black Sabbath gets bigger as a band, once you get into, say, like the second half of their 8 years, they're more calling the shots. However, I guess to a point with Sabotage, while they were making Sabotage, they were in and out of all these legal dramas. So that's a very good point. That it may have been more pressure to not go in that direction. But also it may just be that their focus for what kinds of things they wanted to discuss change. Because you definitely see a very interesting, if you look at Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, there's definitely a lot of interesting things that they're discussing lyrically in that album. And you also see that once you move on through the rest of the albums. But yeah, I think comparing and contrasting Sweet Leaf and Snowblind is a very interesting place to go to. Both are great songs, and I think both have their merits individually, but I personally would just kind of go a little bit more towards Snowblind.
Yeah, they're definitely like the analog to each other of Master of Reality and to Volume 4. They share a lot of similarities. If I remember correctly, Sweet Leaf has a very similar song structure to Snowblind, does it not?
Yeah, I would say, I'd say it's very much along the same lines, where you have that kind of the main riff carrying all the way through, and then you have the explosive middle part, and then it kind of goes back to that original. Yeah, they kind of share similar lines.
Yeah, and just that makes them two very good songs to compare to one another for a multitude of reasons. But yeah, no, they're both fantastic songs, and it is surprising that they didn't write more about drugs, but given that they wrote about so many different things, like, good for them, honestly, for not just sticking to one concept, because they're writing about change, they're writing about, like, just crazy stories, they're writing about love, they really have it, they have a decent, like, reach in terms of the kinds of things that they're writing about.
Absolutely. I think the only thing that would have made Snowblind better is if it had the little sample of someone snorting cocaine that repeats, and then you go right into it.
You see, this is Volume 4. This is the album that they're taking themselves more seriously on. The last one, it was more of a joke to them.
Well, 3 songs ago, they were just banging crosses on guitars while completely naked and fucked up. So,
but they made it sound very eerie.
Yes. All right, you got a point there.
Yeah, even though their motives were totally just joking, like, they made it sound like, take us seriously. This is serious and scary and spooky.
Yeah.
Even though that's not it at all.
So, they definitely did a great job. So this is a very nice cluster of songs that we've been discussing here. Unless if you have other points you'd like to discuss about Snowblind, I've kind of wrapped up all my thoughts.
Yeah, I think I have as well. 2 or 3, I guess, very great songs for us to talk about, all in a row too.
Yeah.
They just hit. They really do.
Absolutely. So Volume 4 is a jam-packed album. Lots to unpack. And I'll be continuing on through the rest of the album before we move on to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. But that's going to do it for our discussion of Snowblind. I want to know from you, what are your thoughts on the song? Do you agree with our lines of thinking about the song, or do you disagree? And I also want to know from you, where do you stand on Sweet Leaf v. Snowblind? Do you take the Sweet Leaf side? Do you take the Snowblind side? Not necessarily your preference of drug, but your preference of song. I would also be curious to know your preference of drug as well. Leave all your
either
thoughts.
or.
Yeah, either or. Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. We've already done all the way up through Snowblind, and we're continuing on through with Cornucopia. We're getting into the latter half of this album, and as I've said before through this series, Volume 4 is my favorite of the Black Sabbath albums, at least for right now. As I also have mentioned before, something I've found about myself with Black Sabbath is that my opinions and my taste about Black Sabbath are constantly changing. Right now, Volume 4 is my favorite, but who knows, maybe in 3 months, Technical Ecstasy may be my favorite. You never know. But now that we're getting into the latter half of this album, the B-side of Volume 4 is rather interesting. You have such a strong opening with Snowblind, and then you have a couple of songs in the middle before you get into the strong finish of Under the Sun that are really interesting. There are a few shorter, smaller songs like Cornucopia, like St. Vitus' Dance, but then you also have Laguna Sunrise, which is just a very beautiful, melodic instrumental. There's a lot of really interesting things. I think the A side of Volume 4 is rather jam-packed. You have like the strong, really kick-ass opening of Wheels of Confusion. You have Tomorrow's Dream, which, while it's sort of a simpler song, it has a lot of power to it. Then it kind of goes into Changes, which is the slower song. And then they throw in the little FX, which is like the weird instrumental part before you go right into Supernaut. And then you have the B-side, which is, I just think the construction of this album as a whole is rather interesting. So we're going to listen to Cornucopia, and if you've watched these videos for any period of time, you know that I talk through the songs. This is a commentary. This isn't me listening to the songs for the first time. I am talking about them as I listen, giving you all my thoughts and everything that I think about this song. So let's jump right into it. This is Cornucopia. And now, no fade in, we're just right into it, which they do a lot on this album, which I think is rather interesting. You can do it Wheels of Confusion. A bunch of their songs, they don't really have the fade in, it's just kind of like right into it. Of course, another great riff from Tony Iommi. I love is it the fuzz on this? It's the distortion, the fuzz, whatever, the sound of it just sounds really cool. I love this riff. The drumming is spectacular. I really like the lyrics for this song. As I mentioned at the top of our dive into this album, there's great diversity in terms of the types of things that they're talking about. You have a lot of songs that are more variations of love stories. You have some songs that are kind of talking about the state of life and existence and going very, more metaphorical in that sense. And then you have something like this, which is more diving into the mind and sort of the heaviness of one's thoughts. And I think you see that pop up throughout Black Sabbath songs just in general. But this is a great example of it. I'm trying to save your brain. I think that's one of the things that you could tell with the amount of drug use that they're doing through the making of these albums, but also just the amount that they are talking about it in their songs. The emphasis and the focus on the mind and the influence of one's mind and sort of the thoughts that people have. You can kind of see that connection and how they sort of draw that line all the way through. I talk a lot about what's the mosh moment of the song. This is the mosh moment. Classic All Right from Ozzy. This may be my favorite part, this coming part. I love this. That whole collection of lyrics is just so great. Ozzy's voice just sounds so good, the manic tone and the desperation that he brings to his vocal sensibilities, the riff, just that's the best part of the album. Now, I mentioned when I talked about Tomorrow's Dream how sometimes the sound of the two songs are very similar, and sometimes I'll get mixed up a little bit. There'll be times where I'm listening to Tomorrow's Dream and we'll get to a point and in my head I just kind of think it's going to go right into that I don't know what's happening part of Cornucopia. Sort of a nihilistic tone to this song, which I love. Ozzy's voice is so good in this song. I love this sort of. It's so good. Alright, that's the end of the song. There's a lot going on in this song. I've talked a lot about, I talked about it with Tomorrow's Dream, how there are a bunch of songs. Black Sabbath will have like their openers and their closers, and they'll have the big songs that have a lot going on. And in the case of Volume 4, like Snowblind has how many different riffs, as does Wheels of Confusion. But then they have some of these songs which are more like the transitionary songs as I described them, where they're kind of taking you from one part of the album to the next. They're shorter songs. They they mainly have like maybe 2 or 3 different riffs, and it's just kind of going through them. So they're not really jam-packed in terms of, constantly changing things up. Like, Cornucopia doesn't have nearly as many changes as, say, as many changes as, say, Snowblind. But there's sort of a lot of power in the shorter, more succinct songs that they do. And that's something what I really like, is that there is that diversity across the whole album. You have the long form, you have the 6, 7, 8 minute, however long Wheels of Confusion / The Strainer is. You have that long form opening. You have such a song like Snowblind that's just constantly changing all the way through. You have the slow song with changes. You have FX, which you just have to listen to and go, what the hell is this? You have such a beautiful song like Laguna Sunrise, which is just like the most beautiful instrumental you can think of. And then you have something like Cornucopia, which is like short and sweet, but it's heavy and just thick in terms of the sound of it. There's so much going on throughout this whole album, and Cornucopia, I think, is just like a very good example of everything that is happening on this album. So that's all my thoughts on Cornucopia. I think this is a damn good song. Is it a song that I actively seek out? And I'm sitting down at my laptop, gonna get some work done, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna listen to Cornucopia. No, not necessarily. I kind of fit in the same vein as, say, An After Forever, or Lord of This World, or Tomorrow's Dream. But when it comes up on my record, or when it comes up on the playlist, I'm gonna enjoy Cornucopia. That's all my thoughts on the song. I want to know, what do you think of Cornucopia? Do you agree with me and my thoughts on it, or do you have a different take on it? Leave all of your thoughts in the comment section below. And I will, after we finish Volume 4, as I usually do, I will be wrapping up all this talk of Volume 4 by taking a look at your thoughts that you leave in the comment section. So make sure, if you haven't left thoughts on the previous videos for Volume 4, do so, as well as going forward, and I will take all those, compile them, and answer them in a video after we finish the album. We've gone all the way up through Cornucopia, and now we're continuing on with their second instrumental of the album, Laguna Sunrise. And this is a really interesting song, not just in of itself, but especially when you compare it to the other instrumental on the album, FX. They are they are nothing alike. If you were to play for somebody FX, and then you were to play Laguna Sunrise, I don't think anybody could remotely tell you that they're the same band. Not in the slightest. Aside from Sabbath fans, of course. I don't think anybody would remotely be able to tell that those are from the same people, because they are so drastically different. And they're only a few songs apart on the album. So let's just get right into it. This is Laguna Sunrise. And now. I love whenever Tony and the rest of the people, but really, like, for some of these instrumentals, most of them, maybe not Rat Salad, but for a lot of these instrumentals, it's really Tony focused, and it's like Tony just getting to play something beautiful. I love that they do this. Like, again, you listen to this album, you wouldn't think that the album that has FX, or has Supernaut, or has Wheels of Confusion would necessarily have a song like this, but it's just so beautiful, It really just shows how talented they are, how gifted they are, and they're not just a one-trick pony. It's not just that we can only play songs like this. They can do anything. These are the people who did Solitude. These are the people who did Planet Caravan. These are the people, in the same vein, the people who did Planet Caravan and Solitude and Laguna Sunrise can also do Black Sabbath. They can also do War Pigs. They can also do Fairies Wear Boots. They can do Sweet Leaf, you know. They can just do so much. And that's why I think they are just the greatest of all time. That they can do everything. As a lot of you know, I kind of come from a movie background. And so when I look at what are like the best filmmakers, one thing I look for is their diversity. That, you know, that they can do more than just one thing. There may be directors who are great at doing one kind of movie, but who I judge as the greatest filmmakers of all time are the ones who can do drama and comedy and action and horror. And they can do all of it, and they do it all excellent and brilliantly. That, to me, is the makings and the hallmarks of the greatest of all time. And with Black Sabbath, it's not just that they do metal excellently. It's not just that they do rock excellently. It's that they can do this. And it's beautiful and gorgeous. And that they can do a horror song with Black Sabbath, and it's beautiful and it's excellent. And they can do Sweet Leaf, and it's beautiful and it's excellent. And they can do FX, you know, it just goes on and on and on. They are the greatest of all time because they can do virtually anything that they want, and it's excellent. I mean, listen to this. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. When I think of the diversity of Black Sabbath and the kinds of things that they can do, Laguna Sunrise has to be one that you point to as like, listen to this. You know, sit someone down, play them FX, play them Laguna Sunrise, and say, is this the same band? I guarantee you 9.9 times out of 10, people who aren't affiliated or know Sabbath are going to be like, oh no, there's no way. There is absolutely no way. I bet you FX was like, you know, some SoundCloud person just fucking around with their guitar and just uploaded it. And then Laguna Sunrise is this like orchestral piece of like these seasoned, brilliant musicians. There's no way that they're the same person or the same group, but they are. And that just shows how great Black Sabbath really is. So I want to know, what are your thoughts on Laguna Sunrise? Do you agree with me that it's just such a testament to how great they are in terms of their diversity and being able to do so many different kinds of things? Not just being able to do different kinds of things, but doing different kinds of things brilliantly. Do you agree with me on that front? Or do you think, Laguna Sunrise, sure, it sounds nice, but every time I listen to Laguna Sunrise, I'm just waiting for them to get back to the metal? What are your thoughts? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. We've gone all the way up through Laguna Sunrise, and now we're continuing on with St. Vitus' Dance, which I think is one of Black Sabbath's most underappreciated, under-talked about song that they've ever done. Nobody talks about this song, and it's great. So I'm not going to say any more. Let's just get right into it. This is St. Vitus' Dance. And now. I mean, how awesome is that riff? And how awesome is that riff? There's sort of similarities with this song to Paranoid, the song. Because, you know, it's kind of just, you know, a one or two riffs with Ozzy kind of singing to this sound of the riff, you know. Sometimes Ozzy's doing his own thing in terms of, like, the vocal sound, and sometimes he's just singing to the same rhythm of the riff, and that's kind of what he does here, and that's what he does in Paranoid. Not a bad thing at all, just an interesting comparison I haven't thought about until just now. It's just great riffs. That's all it is. You know, it's a short song. It's a simple song. There's like maybe 2-3 parts to it. There's not much going on. Sort of similar to Cornucopia in that sense, where it's really only 2 or 3 riffs, couple of parts. It's shorter, not too much going on, but it's just brilliant. Ozzy just sounds great here, as he does on the whole album. And I talked about before that there are a few different love-themed songs on the album. Changes, I think, is more of a breakup or a heartbreak song than a love song. Tomorrow's Dream is like a play on a love song. This is sort of a love song too, in a way. It's interesting, because I'm not a fan of love songs. Like I've said before, I don't like love songs. I just think they're like, okay, we get it, But Black Sabbath, even when they do a love song, they find ways to make it interesting. Because this isn't just, oh, this person's in love with that person, and oh, I'm gonna sing about how full my heart is and how much I love you and all that stuff. They're not singing about that. It's about being betrayed by someone who you trusted and trying to convince somebody to take that person back because they're just filled with regret. Even when they're doing a love song, they find a way to make it something different and unique, and that's just part of the magic of Black Sabbath. Nobody talks about St. Vitus' Dance. Nobody does. And there's definitely a few songs when I look at the entirety of Black Sabbath. There are definitely a few songs that I would say this song is just criminally underappreciated. Like I would say The Writ is one of my favorite. Nobody talks about The Writ. Nobody talks about The Writ. And I'm sure there are other ones that I'm just blanking on. I know there are for a fact. A few songs from Never Say Die, It's All Right does not get nearly as much appreciation and love as it deserves. And I may be on the minority of that, but damn it, I love It's All Right from Technical Ecstasy. I love that song, and I will fight anyone on that. But this is, I'll save my thoughts on It's All Right until we talk about Technical Ecstasy, which that'll be an interesting album to talk about. But, no, it's St. Vitus' Dance. Not nearly enough people talk about this song. It was interesting. So I'm sure a lot of you know. If you don't know, at the end of the year, Spotify does this sort of wrapping up of Spotify, and they tell you, the top 5 artists you listen to, the songs that you listen to the most, and all that kind of stuff. And I posted my results because it was mostly Black Sabbath themed on the Observing the Sabbath Instagram account that we have at Observing the Sabbath. In it, when it went through and told me my top 5 songs, St. Vitus' Dance was like number 4, which I was surprised by it because, I know I like the song, and I've listened to the song a bunch. I did not expect it to be like my number 4 most listened to song of the year. Wheels of Confusion, of course, was number 1. I was not expecting that, but it's a damn good song. It's short. It's similar to what I was saying about Cornucopia. It's short, it's sweet, there's only a couple of pieces to it. It's not that involved of a song, but it's just taking you through the album. It's just taking you, it's a nice little piece to go right into the final song of the album. So anyways, those are all my thoughts on St. Vitus' Dance. I want to know, what do you think about the song? Do you agree with me? Or do you think that, it's kind of, it's a couple of riffs. We get it. There's not too much going on. It's not really one that should be talked more about or appreciated more than it currently is. I want to know. Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. Well, once again, I'm Nathanael Molnár. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to subscribe for more content as we finish the album Volume 4. We only have one more to go. We have Under the Sun, and then we will be done with the album. I will then be posting an album review / reading your thoughts in the comment section. Usually I post those as 2 separate videos, but I decided from now on, I'm just going to link them as one. I will do one video that is my review of the album, and then I will take a look at all the comments that are on all the videos, and just sort of as one big wrapping up of the album. And then we're going to be going into Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. That's crazy to me. We will be on by the time that we get to the 1-year anniversary of Observing the Sabbath, which will be March of 2021, will be 1 year that we've been doing this. We will be probably, I'd imagine, at least halfway through Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, if not done with the album at that point. Which is kind of crazy, and especially since I had some dry spells where I wasn't putting out videos. That's fun. I'm excited. I'm excited to get to that album. It'll mean that we're halfway through all 8 albums. And I think I'll end up doing 13, because why not? So technically 9 albums, but we'll be halfway through. And that's cool. I'm excited. I'm excited to dive into South Bloody South because that album has some great songs that I love. And I'm especially excited to talk about Sabotage because that is like, I think that's my second favorite album, or second or third favorite album. There's some great stuff. And talking about songs that are criminally underappreciated and under-talked about, Thrill of It All. Nobody talks about Thrill of It All, and that is like a top 5 Sabbath song. Nobody talks about Thrill of It All. Top 5 Sabbath song, in my opinion, of course. So anyways, that's everything about St. Vitus' Dance. We have done all the way through. Let me make sure I get this order right. We have done Wheels of Confusion. We've done Tomorrow's Dream. We've done Changes. We've done FX. We've done Supernaut. We've done Snowblind. We've done Cornucopia. We've done Laguna Sunrise. And we have done St. Vitus' Dance. Yes, I got it all right. And now we are finishing off with Under the Sun. What an album. What an album indeed. This is such a good album. But I will save all my thoughts on Volume 4 as a whole until we do the album review episode / your thoughts on Volume 4. That's right. In the past, I have done separate videos for the album review and for reading the comments section, which is your thoughts on the album. But I'm going to be doing it as just one video from here on out, just to make it a little bit more concise. So make sure, including this video, but all the previous videos for Volume 4, go in, leave all your thoughts, leave all your comments on all the songs for all the videos, and I will make sure to talk about each and every one of them in that upcoming video. So let's just dive right into it. This is the final song of Volume 4. This is the closing act. This is Under the Sun. And now. Again, something that's sort of consistent through the whole album. No fades in. Just right into the song. Sort of similar to Ratsa / Fairies Wear Boots, where you get the drum heavy closer. Of course, Tony just pulls out of his ass just another great riff. Like it's nothing. To him, it's like pocket change. Lyrically, I think this is maybe my favorite song from this album. Lyrically. It is so interesting. I've talked about before. You have in terms of like the discussion of religion and religious views, there's sort of like an interesting arc to it through the albums. You start with Black Sabbath, the original album, which has more of like a satanic view. And then you get into Master of Reality, which is it has some Christian themes to it. And then once you get to Volume 4 on, it has more of an agnostic / atheistic view. And I think like this song in particular, you hear it in Supernaut, Got No Religion, Don't Need No Friends. You hear it in Under the Sun very explicitly. You hear it throughout the album. There's a lot of great stuff in this song. Lyrically, it's just the most interesting. This is like examining life and just looking at existence and life as a whole. And I've talked about the diversity of the subject matters on this album. You have the love songs, or the love sort of centric songs. You have the songs that are just kind of looking at life in its entirety, like this, or Wheels of Confusion. You have the songs that are diving into the mind, and with Cornucopia, you have the songs that are about drugs, Snowblind. This is just one of the more profound, lyrically speaking, profound songs. Not just on the album, but just Black Sabbath in general. Beautiful drums. This is really, I think, we haven't really had a true, like, part in this whole album for Billboard to shine. I mean, he's great on every song that he does. But, you know, with Paranoid, you have Rat Salad, which is his time to shine. I'm completely blank. Oh, no, Sweet Leaf. You kick it off, and Master of Reality, he gets his sort of opening part with the drums in Sweet Leaf, which is great. And then it's Under the Sun. where he really gets to shine. Of course, Tony's great. Of course, Geezer's great. Of course, Ozzy's great. But Bill Ward really gets his moments to shine in this song. So, if I were to compare and contrast for a minute, Into the Void and Under the Sun. Lyrically speaking, I think I prefer Under the Sun in terms of sound and tone and being the better closer to an album. I would say Into the Void is better. Even though I would take as a whole the album Volume 4 is like top, and Master of Reality is definitely on the lower end for me, which I go against the grain on that thought. But Into the Void, I think, is the stronger closing song. And maybe the stronger song overall. But lyrically speaking, I take Under the Sun. There's a lot of great lines in this song. And this whole closing part of the song is just excellent. It really feels like they're wrapping up the album here, which they do such a great job of with the closers to their albums. The closing songs to all their albums aren't just great songs, but they feel like definitive. It feels like this whole part is just slowly but surely tying the knot on the bow to the album. And of course, Tony gets his part. Like, okay, Bill, you're gonna get your part. Tony, you're gonna get your part. Ozzy's got his part. I'm sure Geezer has his moment in here, although I might not hear it specifically just with the one earbud in. This whole close part, it's the reward you get for listening to the whole album. It's the thank you. And I like how much they draw it out. They draw it out so much. It's great. Because you just don't want the album to end. So you're so happy that they're taking their time to really end it. I love that. And they're drawing it out. But it's not over yet. Oh, it's so good. Wow. What an ending. What an ending indeed. That is just... I love Under the Sun. Again, I would take Into the Void in terms of the sound, the tone, and being the better closer to an album, but I would take Under the Sun being better lyrically, and just Volume 4 as an album, I would take that over Master of Reality as an album. But Under the Sun, I mean, maybe not the most unique or mind-blowing guitar riffs compared to the whole album. Like, obviously, I think Supernaut and Snowblind and Wheels of Confusion and even St. Vitus Dance, or those songs have stronger guitar elements than Under the Sun. But Under the Sun didn't need to have these, like, incredible, like, mind-blowing, on the same par of a Supernaut guitar elements. It didn't need that, because this was, it was giving Bill Ward his time to shine. It was just going more into, like, really interesting and fun and thought-provoking lyrics. Every day just comes and goes. Life is one long overdose. People try to rule the nation. I just laugh at their frustration. You know, going into that whole element and just kind of drawing out the end and making it just a nice ending to the album. So that's one thing. It's like, when I look at Into the Void, I think Into the Void has some of the strongest guitar elements and instrumentation of Master of Reality. Under the Sun doesn't quite have that, which is fine. And I don't mean to say, like, oh, like, this song only has to be compared to Into the Void. Like, it absolutely stands on its own, and I just do that looking at the two albums and their closing songs. But Under the Sun, I think, is just, it's a great song. I love it. And it is a song I actively seek out and put on and listen to. And it's a great closing song. It's just a great song in general. And lyrically speaking, it's one of my favorites. So anyways, that's my thoughts on... I don't think that was proper grammar. Those are my thoughts. There we go. On Under the Sun, the final song on Volume 4. I want to know, what are your thoughts on this song? Do you agree with me in my comparison to Into the Void and where I stand on that, or do you differ on that? Leave all of your thoughts in the comment section below. Once again, I'm Nathanael Molnár. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to subscribe for more content. So get all of your comments and your thoughts in for all the videos for Volume 4, because the next video will be my album review / your thoughts on Volume 4. And I'll talk about all of your comments in that video. And then we'll go right into Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. So until then, until my album review / read in the comment section video, thank you for watching.